out there, you know what time it is. It is another edition of your favorite program, The Diaspora, and I am here to bring you juicy and informative stories. Trust me, it is indeed unmissable. Do you know Mr. Onyema Ogwagu? He is a Nigerian American, an associate professor of medicine, and a head researcher at Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine trial at Yale University. He urges African leaders to take proactive measures when tackling health issues, especially as it relates to COVID-19. Stay tuned for more details on this. And our very own Anthony Joshua has retained his world heavyweight title in a 9th round knockout against his opponent Kubrat Pulev. This is your favorite program, The Diaspora, and I am your host, Koinsola Adetumbi. Please stay tuned. Mr. Onyema Ogwagu, a Nigerian-American researcher and medical doctor, stressed the need for African leaders to position themselves to address the health challenges facing the continent. He gave this advice at a virtual lecture series on the topic COVID-19 vaccine, hesitancy, myths and reality, organized by the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, in partnership with NGEX.
For us in the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, one of the things we've made a priority is to celebrate the best of ourselves. And tonight, Dr. Onyema, we celebrate you, we commend you. On behalf of Mr. President, I want to say thank you for all you've been doing. Now, as we're discussing some time ago, some people will say to me, why is it that you're always congratulating Nigerians who are succeeding abroad? And I said, who was doing that before? Nobody. In the past, it's all about the bad stories. It's about drugs, fraud, and all that. And then the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, which is just about a year and a few months old, came into existence in Nigeria. And we said we must change the narrative. We are not a country of fraudsters or drug dealers. We are made up of beautiful, brilliant, intelligent, hardworking, resilient Nigerians like you, Dr. Onyema. For us in the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, we will continue to work at tapping into the power of the diaspora. Our greatest asset is not about oil, it's not what we have, but it's about our people, our human resources in the diaspora. Again, people ask, would you, Dr. Onyema, have excelled if you didn't find your way to America? That is for posterity to judge. But for us is that you are there, you are in the diaspora. Nigeria must connect with you. We need to work together to build this country. Nigerians at home and Nigerians in the diaspora. Once more, on behalf of Mr. President himself and the people of Nigeria, congratulations, Dr. Onyema. We wish you many more successes ahead as we look forward to a beautiful and exciting conversation with you. Welcome everyone to this session.
And I'm just grateful for the honor you've all done me to have us address an issue that's near and dear to my heart. And I'm grateful for all the recognition and accolades and etc. So I was born in the US as an identical twin. So I have an identical twin brother who is actually in the finance industry. He's a vice president of one of the big banks in the US. His name is Chibuzo. And I was in the US at the time when my parents were initially pursuing their PhDs, and eventually my dad actually was a faculty at Yale. Both my parents are professors, and you can imagine growing up in that kind of household that they instill values in you, especially how important it is to make education your number one priority, how important it was to study and try to set yourself apart as early as primary school. So I owe a lot to my parents, Professor Chibuzo and Professor Stella Ogwagu, who promised to attend this if they will. Then I moved to Nigeria when I was five years old. So I do owe a lot of my early upbringing and early schooling and training to Nigeria. Many times when I look back at my background and my success in my medical career, I think I owe a lot to the training I had in the University of Calabar. When I graduated, I moved to the US to do my specialty and subspecialty training. I did my primary care and internal medicine residency in the Mount Sinai School of Medicine program at Elmhurst Hospital in New York City. And then also after my residency, I was elected to be chief resident, which I appreciated that honor. and then went on to Yale to do my infectious disease training.
Onyema, it's excellent work you've been doing. I think the Pfizer vaccine trumps it all at the moment anyway, apart from the issue of the nature of the storage. But in terms of efficacy and in terms of cost effectiveness as well, it's been a real crucial break. The first question I have for you is the issue of fake news and the huge issue of vaccine. What would I call it? The lack of acceptance of vaccine, or the hesitancy in accepting vaccine. What do you think is the weakness in the ability of science to really put forward that information in terms of exactly how the mechanism is, and put out get rid of those fears when it comes to the issue of messenger RNA vaccines or new methods of eliciting immune response in the body?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very great question. I think that the issue of vaccine hesitancy is not new. It's been an issue that's plagued us for a long time. In fact, I think the WHO at some point had listed vaccine hesitancy as one of the 10 greatest threats to global health. And I think if we just think about historically the role that vaccines have played with either eradicating diseases, near eradicating diseases, and even the year-to-year advantages, there have always been individuals that have been concerned about what vaccines are. There's a lot of misconceptions around the harms or the potential harms that vaccines cause. And specifically for COVID-19 vaccines, I think that one of the concerns has certainly been about the accelerated process or timelines. So I want to flag vaccine hesitancy as a serious threat for us. The punchline I would say is that, thinking about COVID-19, I think with vaccines, I think that would be the one public health approach that really holds the greatest promise. We can wear masks and social distance, but we know how difficult it is to maintain some of that for a long period of time. And those don't really get rid of the disease itself. I think that the vaccine would be that tool that would be the final nail in the coffin, if you will, for COVID-19. So we have a solution to the problem. Let's not introduce problems to the solution. First of all, I just want to remind everyone that the reason why it was really we're able to proceed this fast with the vaccine studies is because a lot of work had been done even prior to the COVID pandemic. So there have been a lot of work with vaccines for other conditions, other viral conditions, and trying different strategies, including mRNA technology as an option for vaccine development. So mRNA vaccine technology did not start with COVID. It predates COVID. There's data, there's animal studies in animals, there's early phase human studies assessing messenger RNA vaccine. So it wasn't relatively new.
To the general public, I think it's extremely important is when you talk about messenger RNA, you talk about integration, you talk about possibly altering DNA function, etc. Are we all going to turn into corona when we get these injections? Is there a risk that we could all become viruses? What's the fear?
Messenger RNA is not reverse transcribed into DNA. It's not DNA. It doesn't incorporate into the human genome. In fact, messenger RNA is so fragile, in a couple of hours after getting the vaccine, it's disintegrated pretty quickly over time, so that the vaccine, maybe even in under a day, has really left your body, but enough to be able to cause your body to produce proteins that stimulate the immune system against the viral structure, which is the spike protein. So I want to be very clear on this. Messenger RNA vaccines do not enter the nucleus. They don't incorporate into host DNA. And so there should be no concerns about it altering human genomes. Prior to COVID-19, the fastest, quickest start to finish for a vaccine was about 4 years for the mumps vaccine. Okay, but you can imagine for the COVID-19 vaccine, it's really about 9 months, right? Because everything started right about March-ish. Okay, at least when the first clinical trials started. Now, yes, the studies have been accelerated, which is appropriate because of the times we're in, the fact that this was a global pandemic with a decent, quite significant mortality rate, and everybody worked together. The reason why the vaccine trials have gone on so successfully, and I think it's just an amazing experience, it's just a tribute to how when everybody works together with laser focus on a common goal to achieve a common goal, address current public health threats, this is what success looks like. Even though the studies went on fast, there were no shortcuts. The studies went through all the phases, that there's at least 75 or 76,000 people who've already received a COVID mRNA vaccine. The vaccine antigen, the mRNA disintegrates in the body in hours, literally, after you get the vaccine. So we do not anticipate any long-term side effects that have not been detected very early on. But that said, those studies are ongoing. So we're pretty confident about the safety record of the vaccine.
Can a pregnant woman take this vaccine, or will it affect fertility? That is one question. And then, why are airlines insisting that you must get the vaccine before you board?
We did not include pregnant women. We did not include breastfeeding women. So if a woman is pregnant or they're breastfeeding, we did not include them in the study. And the reason why is that we know that if the harms that come to a woman, it can occur to the kid, not because we're worried about the Pfizer vaccine. Every clinical trial I have ever done for HIV, whatever, the first wave of studies are usually not conducted in pregnant women. When we conduct them in non-pregnant individuals and we see that it's safe as has been done, then we have and now go ahead with studies in pregnant women. So those studies will commence. That said, people didn't listen to us, and there were 23 pregnancies as at the time we sent the information to the FDA. We had a couple of people who were pregnant just around before they received the vaccine. We have people who became pregnant on the vaccine in the immediate period, and we had some who had pregnancy a couple of weeks after the vaccine. So, obviously they're pregnant now. It's a 9-month process, so there will be data on that. Okay, but so far, nobody has, to the best of my knowledge, we're not aware of a pregnancy loss or anything. So I think that's very reassuring. So what I will say is that we know that it makes sense for airlines to enforce mask wearing, right, to ensure that people wear masks, because there's worry that if you're in a clustered space, although some data suggests airlines, because of the pressure, are not necessarily a conducive environment for spreading the disease. But I think that now that we have another public health intervention that can confer protection both for the individual and collectively protection for the community, it does make sense, that being vaccinated against COVID should be a requirement. Is there a model for this? Absolutely. How many of you have yellow cards? Right? Don't many of us have yellow cards for yellow fever vaccination? Okay, those are important. And, so I think that, sometimes we tend to think of COVID differently and forget how we've managed other deadly infectious diseases. So again, now I'm not for, and this could go either way. I think especially for a new vaccine, maybe mandating it is a step too far, which means forcing people to take it. That's a whole different conversation we can have. But I think that airlines requiring people to have vaccines, I would support that.
Specifically for COVID, there's a lot of work that's currently ongoing at the government side. The minister has set up an expert advisory group, and even within the PTF itself, as we transition next year, the plan is that a smaller body that will be formed would have a specific remit at the highest level of making sure that funds are identified and the vaccines are brought in. We know exactly how much is required to vaccinate 44 million Nigerians as the first phase of the response. These will mostly be healthcare workers and elderly people and those with comorbidities. If you look at what the federal government has in terms of its budget, it's actually not a huge amount. It's probably a case of cancelling a few roads, and we'll probably have the money for that. But it needs to be budgeted. We have already approached the legislators because the 2021 budget is yet to be signed, and primary health full estimate of what will be required. So that's the preparation from the government side.
Thank you for making us all proud to be Nigerians.
Kudos, Mr. Onyema, and thank you to NIDCOM for always keeping us on our toes.
Not so fast.
Look, I'm tired. I want to check out of this country for greener pastures.
Just calm down for a moment. Please sit down.
Do you have a job where you're going to?
No, but someone is arranging,
Listen, Alinko. Checking out of this country without proper planning means one thing. Unimaginable begin. You know, I've been in the diaspora, but legitimately doing great things at home and abroad. As I've been saying, without the proper footing abroad, the risk is not worth it. Listen, Alinko, it's better to be home than be trapped abroad, or even end up in prison.
Welcome back. And now, please stand for the World Heavyweight Champion, Anthony Joshua Olorunfemi, for retaining your World Heavyweight titles with a 9th round knockout win over Kubrat Pulev, WBO, WBA, IBF of Heavyweight Champion.
My name is Tim Makon. I'm the CEO founder of New Horizons Nigeria. One Africa Initiatives is an NGO, is an umbrella body of all the Africans, Nigerians and Africans in the diaspora. We have two types of diaspora people. We have the Nigerians who travel abroad for economic fortunes, but we equally have people of African descent whose great-great-grandparents were captured as slaves 400 years ago. What One Africa Initiative is trying to do in partnership with the Nigeria in Diaspora Commission is we are like the umbrella body for most of the diaspora groups abroad. We have our members spread across 30 countries of the world. We have one of our members in New York, who is Dyrus Rose. He is investing over $100 million in Africa, but we are working with him to ensure that the bulk of this money comes to Nigeria for investment. We will also work with Nigeria and Diaspora Commission to ensure that this journal is made available to them as a platform, as a tool through which they can equally reach more Nigerians in diaspora and more Africans in diaspora.
One of the big things that we found here in the United States in reference to the whole agricultural experience and so forth was just recently the pandemic. It brought about the efficiencies in the food chain systems. And the strange thing about it now, after 30 years of just witnessing, Africa and its movement forward, I'm now looking at the fact that we have to make sure that in this whole agricultural perspective, because this is the lifeblood of the citizenry, that the potential of it happening in Nigeria and in Africa is very likely. That sooner or later we will have a disease and or a food chain upset that's going to create all types of commotion. So we must make sure that amongst all the agricultural situations that problem must be adjusted, that the production and the processing of livestock, husbandry, raw goods, and the processing and production is first and foremost that must be handled. I mean, that's where a lot of money must be put at. The other thing of it is youth employment. Because of the recent uprisings in the States, as well as the uprisings in Nigeria, there needs to be a consistency of bringing the youth into the arena of what is now considered a bygone entity, because everything now is based upon healthcare and human services and things of that nature. We must make sure that we focus on the youth and get them into the arena of being able to appreciate being back in the farm and agricultural industry. So that's one of the reasons why, from my investment standpoint, I'm looking at that as an ingredient.
The federal government has announced new guidelines for international travelers coming to Nigeria, effective from September 18, 2020. Before departure, all travelers coming to Nigeria must take a COVID-19 PCR test at an accredited laboratory in the country of departure not more than 5 days before boarding. Only PCR tests will be accepted. Travelers with a PCR test result of more than 5 days or 120 hours or with COVID-19 symptoms will not be allowed to board. Within 3 days before boarding, register on the Nigeria International Travel Portal. Complete and submit the health declaration and self-reporting form online with a valid phone number and address. Update information on diplomats and children under age 10 separately. Next, upload the negative PCR test result on the portal. Choose a sample collection center and then book an appointment date where the mandatory self-isolation will be observed in Nigeria. Payment for the repeat PCR test to be done 7 days after arrival is to be made online on the portal, after which a QR code access report will be generated. It is strongly recommended that payment be made online before boarding. Payment on arrival in Nigeria can lead to long delays before exiting the airport. For issues with payment, visit saferport.com, My Traveler Record. On arrival in Nigeria, passengers are required to undergo port health screening and present electronic or printout QR code evidence. Travelers developing symptoms on arrival or during screening will be placed in institutional quarantine for appropriate care. From the airport, proceed to the 7-day mandatory self-isolation and avoid all physical interaction with others. During isolation, be available by telephone, as travelers will be monitored by public health officers and should check their emails and text messages regularly for updates from the selected laboratory for their repeat PCR tests. On day 7, have samples taken for the repeat PCR test at the selected sample collection center. Passengers are required to provide a valid means of identification. Travelers who test positive for COVID-19 will be managed based on national guidelines for treatment. Those who test negative after 7 days can end self-isolation. Be advised that those who fail to repeat the PCR test by day 14 may face suspension of their passports, inclusion on a travel no-fly list, or be denied international travel for 6 months. Get 24/7 support. Please take responsibility. This message is from the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 in collaboration with CACOVID.
Thank you for staying all through the program. We hope it's been worth your while. And in case you have anything to share with us, please do not hesitate to do so, as we expect feedback on our show. Remember, you can reach us on all our social media platforms. On Facebook at Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, on Twitter at NIDCOM_gov, on our Instagram page at NIDCOM_gov, on our YouTube page at NIDCOM_gov, and on our website at www.nidcom.gov.ng. You can also join us on DSTV at NTA Network on Friday at 10:30 a.m., on NTA International on Tuesday at 6 a.m. and 10:05 p.m., on NTA News 24 on Friday at 2:30 p.m., and on Sunday at 10:30 a.m. You can also join us on WAP TV on Thursdays at 9 a.m. and on WTV on Wednesdays and Sundays at 8 a.m. You can also join us on Ben TV London at 4:30 p.m. on Saturday. I remain your host, Koinsola Adetumbi. See you next time.